In today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors. Today, we're focusing on many of Canada's teams again, the Leafs, the Oilers, and the Vancouver Canucks. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. Welcome back to Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Now, today's video is jam-packed with a lot of talk around these three teams here, like I mentioned, the Leafs, Canucks, and Oilers. Of course, there's some talk about other teams they're talking to, so I highly recommend you really watch today's video in full here. There's a lot of information here to take into consideration on some of these deals that are potentially being discussed here and might actually happen. Now, I want to get started with the Vancouver Canucks, and this actually involves the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. We saw information yesterday on Twitter from Rick Dollywall, who covers the Canucks and is a reliable source, indicating that the Canucks had interest in Maple Leaf defenseman Nikita Zaitsev. Now, of course, as we know, the Leafs have made it clear that Zaitsev has requested a trade and wants out of Toronto. It looks as though he just doesn't like playing in the big spotlight. We've seen comments of him saying that no matter what they did, they were always criticized. He's just not a good fit for him, and to be honest, I don't think the Leafs are all that upset about it, considering the fact that he was rumored to be one of the names that they'd want to shed this summer to create salary cap space to retain many of their other young players who need new contracts that are currently RFAs here. So obviously, that likely is a player who's going to be moved anyway. But the Canucks having interest has certainly kind of set off a lot of Canuck fans here in a little bit of a frenzy. Now, I've seen many Canucks fans online kind of concerned that this deal might actually take place. Zaitsev is 27 years old. He's got 5 years left on his contract, $4.5 million. So certainly not the most desirable contract considering how the last 2 years have gone. I mean, if you take a look at him, a couple of pluses, that he's not too old. 27 is a good age. He's a right shot defenseman, which normally are in high demand, but he brings very little offense. His offensive production has not been good. Defensively, he looks lost at times. He's a good skater, which is a good thing, but he doesn't really move the puck all that well. He's not very creative. There's really more negatives to his games than positive. The fact that he shoots right and is a good skater is certainly not the greatest. Now, if he had a different contract attached to him and it was maybe $2 to $3 million in 2 to 3 years, it would certainly be a whole different story here. I mean, he's being paid as a top 4 guy, but he's really a third pair guy at best, and some teams he may not even be a top 6 at all. So I'm really not sure that this would be a great deal for the Canucks. I know there's been a lot of talk about them reshaping their decor over the offseason here. There's certainly a lot of question marks of what the decor will look like in Vancouver next year. We know they're not re-signing Derek Pouliot. There's been some talk about Chris Tanev, about Ben Hutton and their futures with the club. But I'm just not sure that bringing in Nikita Zaitsev would be the way to go. It's not quite clear exactly what the return package would be or what part of that may have been discussed. All we know for sure is the Canucks reportedly were checking in to find out what the price tag would be. But based on Toronto's salary cap crunch and the fact they need to shed salary, I can't imagine they'd want to take on a roster player with an NHL contract. More than likely here they're looking for draft picks or prospects in return. And other teams are likely asking the Leafs to do that as well to kind of sweeten the pot a little bit. You want us to take Zaitsev's contract, you need to add another piece, whether it be a roster player, a good prospect, a first-round pick, something in order to kind of sweeten the deal. And of course, we know that the Leafs already traded their 2019 first-rounder, so that's not in play. They don't really have that many great prospects, in my opinion. A lot of their great prospects have graduated to the NHL and aren't really prospects anymore. They have a couple of promising defenders in Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin. They do have a couple of decent-looking forwards down there, Jeremy Bracco, Mason Marchment. Even though he's getting a little bit older, he still had some pretty solid times in the American Hockey League. Might earn himself a shot here yet. So either way, it's not quite sure exactly what the Canucks would want, but that apparently was being discussed. And personally, if I'm the Canucks, I'm steering away from that. You'd have to get an awfully good package coming back to consider taking that contract. Like I said, if it was shorter term, less money, maybe it would be more likely. Now, we also saw reports from Elliot Friedman, who obviously has a little bit more sources than just the Canucks, indicating that other teams like the New Jersey Devils were interested as well. And we've seen other NHL insiders indicating that there's lots of interest on Nikita Zaitsev, and the Leafs are getting a lot of calls, which, to be completely honest, I do find a little bit surprising, considering, like I said, how his last couple of years have gone. I can't see there being that much interest without trying to get the Leafs to really overpay here and add something pretty sweet to the pot to take on that toxic contract, because that's, in my opinion, that's what it is. Now, we also seen some reports about maybe the Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes renewing trade talks. As we know, the Carolina Hurricanes in the past, over the past season really, have shown a lot of interest in a couple of the younger Maple Leaf forwards, primarily William Nylander and Kasperi Kapanen. So we've seen some suggestions that maybe a package deal of Zaitsev along with maybe a Kapanen going to Carolina in exchange for one of their right shot defensemen who needs to be moved. They could consider moving either Pesce or Falk or Hamilton, or a combination of one of those D along with something else, maybe a pick prospect or something to kind of even out the deal here. So the Canes might be willing to take that contract on in order to get another solid asset like a Kapanen out of Toronto. I could see that being considered as well. I can't imagine that the Leafs would probably really want to do that. They might if they feel desperate enough, or if they feel like they need to move one of their younger forwards, if it boils down to that. But I'm sure that's the type of deal they're not going to jump at. They'd probably want to see what else is out there. And if they can move Zaitsev without attaching any of their current RFAs, that would certainly, I'm sure, be preferable here. But all kinds of talk around Zaitsev and where he might go, linked to the Canucks. All kinds of other talk around the Canucks too. So we'll transition over to that here now. There's also been talk, as I said here, about the Canucks completely reshaping their defensive core. And there's been some speculation that they're looking at some free agents as well. Include some players currently on Canadian teams like the Leafs and the Jets, and that includes Jake Gardiner and Tyler Myers. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion that each of them would want to go to Vancouver or that they'll even be available. I've seen new reports as of this morning indicating that the Jets and Tyler Myers are actually renewing contract negotiations here. I think the Jets are certainly trying to move other pieces, and if they move Trouba, which has been highly speculated, that they would certainly try a little harder and have more money to try to retain Myers. But either way, lots going on in Vancouver. I think Jim Benning likely realizes that his job is kind of starting to have a lot of pressure here. I don't think he's in danger of being fired, but as we've seen here with Trevor Linden leaving, ownership is certainly getting quite antsy, wants to see the team take big steps forward, get back to the playoffs, get back to more of their winning ways here, and they want to accelerate this rebuild, and they probably need to do that through trade or free agency. They've acquired a lot through the draft, and now they want to add in other means here. But unfortunately for Jim Benning, I don't think he's got the greatest track record with trades. If you take a look at a lot of the other defensemen they've acquired under his watch, it certainly hasn't been great. A lot of the players haven't worked out. Some contracts that weren't great. Like the Eric Branson situation is one of the more recent examples here of that. So we'll see what happens here, but I hope for the Canucks' sake that they don't acquire Zaitsev. I don't really think that's what they need. But somebody likely is going to make this deal by the sounds of it. But I can't help but wonder if some of these insiders are being fed information by the Leafs saying that there's all kinds of interest just try to increase his value here, because obviously I just don't see where the value is outside of the fact that he shoots right and he's a good skater, but he's got a bad contract for a long time, doesn't provide offense, looks lost at times. So we'll see what happens here, but apparently there's lots of talk around Zaitsev here in the Maple Leafs. Now, staying with the Leafs here momentarily, we saw a video last night from Sean Avery, which I believe was posted through Instagram. I saw it on Twitter being shared around, but I believe it was originally posted to his Instagram account, where he claims to have the information that the Maple Leafs and Jets were talking about a trade for Nazem Kadri for Jacob Trouba, and he says it's a done deal, but obviously nothing has come out of either organization or any other NHL insider, which I'm sure would have more reliable, more credible sources here. So if you've seen that, I wouldn't put much stock into it. But like I've said before, I think that would be maybe not 1-for-1, but that would be a great trade. It would give the Jets a number 2 center iceman who can produce, former 30-goal scorer. He's got a very reasonable team-friendly contract, so that helps with their cap situation. It moves Trouba out, which would be a great right shot D for Toronto. I really think it'd be a great deal for both clubs. Obviously, Toronto would have to negotiate a new deal with Trouba, and that might prove difficult until some of these other deals that they're being discussed or other situations are settled here, because obviously they've got a lot on their plate right now, and so we'll see here. But Sean Avery is certainly not, in my opinion, a reliable, credible source. If you've seen that video and nothing has happened, I wouldn't put much stock into it, but it is a possibility that those two teams could have that discussions. Like I said, it does make a lot of sense, but certainly nothing from a reliable source confirms that deal's going down or is even being discussed at the present time. Quick piece of information here as well. The former Detroit Red Wings forward Pavel Datsyuk, who we discussed in the video before, but potentially returning to the NHL, has decided to remain in the KHL, and he is going back to his hometown team. So he's leaving SKA St. Petersburg, going back to his hometown club, which was the other speculation here. Is either going to probably go back to Detroit for a year or go back to there. I'm not even sure if the Red Wings had an offer to bring him back or not, but either way, he has decided to remain playing over there in the KHL, and will go back to that club here for 1 year on a 1 year deal. So we'll see. I wouldn't completely rule out Datsyuk ever playing in the NHL again, but as each year goes by, it certainly becomes much more unlikely that a return ever takes place. But that is now settled. Of course, fellow Russian and former Montreal Canadian Andrei Markov is still rumored to be talking to different teams as well about a potential return, but there haven't been any updates on that situation here in the last little while, so we'll keep you posted on that as the information becomes available. Now, lastly here, I want to touch on Edmonton Oilers forward Jesse Puljujarvi. Now, a report came out here through a website which I believe is from Finland. The report indicated that a KHL club, Jokerit, is expected to announce a 1 year deal with the Finnish forward here, and he will return to play in the KHL next season. That report has since been denied for a couple of reasons. For one, he wouldn't even be eligible to sign a contract with them until at least July 1st. The Oilers have until end of June to continue negotiating with him before he'd even be eligible to consider contracts from other leagues. And we've also seen some other NHL insiders like Bob McKenzie and Darren Dreger weigh in on this situation as well. So we don't have any information to believe for sure that he's going, but I wouldn't completely rule out the fact that maybe he and his agent are kind of using that as a way to put pressure on the Oilers to maybe facilitate a trade. Now, his agent has indicated right now that Puljujarvi is in Edmonton as the team has requested. He's rehabbing the injury that he had season-ending surgery on and he's trying to get himself back healthy and ready for next season while they continue to negotiate a contract, because he is a pending restricted free agent here, so he needs a new contract to continue playing with the Oilers. I'll put up some quotes here from McKenzie and Dreger. Bob McKenzie has indicated here on TSN Radio Vancouver that his preference is to play in the NHL. His preference is also to be traded out of Edmonton. I don't think there's any secret about that. Then we also see here from Darren Dreger, who says league sources have recently suggested trade remains a strong option as well. So obviously it looks as though Puljujarvi may want out of Edmonton. This information certainly does suggest that. He and his agent may be using the possibility of going to the KHL as some leverage here. If they're going to lose him anyway, they might as well trade him type of deal. So we'll see. I mean, it looks as though Puljujarvi hasn't been pleased with how the first few years of his NHL career has gone at Edmonton. I honestly can't completely blame him. He hasn't got the results that he wants. But I do think part of that might be on the team, but part of that's obviously on the player too. So we'll see what happens. But Jesse Puljujarvi very well might be traded out of Edmonton just yet. I know near the end of the season, listening to comments from Bob Nicholson, based on how the team likely would move forward, wants to give their prospects more time for development and seasoning things to the minors. Certainly, obviously he's had that and he might feel he's ready. I'm not sure where things are at in his mind, but obviously it looks as though it's not a guarantee here that Puljujarvi returns to Edmonton. Possibly a trade or possibly a 1 year deal in the KHL. So as each passing day goes by here, there's all kinds of talk around the NHL, all kinds of things, especially around Canada's teams, the Leafs, the Canucks, the Oilers, the Jets, all expected to be very busy. Of course, yesterday we discussed the Senators, the Habs, all kinds of stuff going on, all kinds of activity. And as each day goes by, we inch closer to the draft and free agency. Things are really going to ramp up. There's going to be all kinds of speculation, and we'll see here how these teams proceed with some of the speculated moves. Of course, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions in the comment section below on everything we discussed today. What do you think would be a good deal for Nikita Zaitsev? Where's a good landing spot for him if you're a Canucks fan? Is that something you'd want to consider? Or would you hope Jim Benning hangs up the phone? Let me know your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation in the comments. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more videos just like this one and give the video a thumbs up as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching and I will catch you next time.